Alan Oxley, who is now head of the APEC Study Center in Melbourne. And he was Australia's first envoy to the precursor of the World Trade Organization, the WTO. Alan, great to have you with us. What do you think will get done at this APEC summit?
Usually these summits are much influenced by the interests of the host. And Russia's in quite an interesting point in time right now. It's just finalised its membership of WTO. It's forged a customs union with Belarus and Kazakhstan. It's announced it'll do free trade agreements between that customs union and New Zealand and Vietnam. And while I think we always must expect Russia to be fairly tough in the way it's opening its borders, what we see here is a clean focus on growth and opening markets. So it'll re-inject into APEC its fairly traditional agenda, I think.
Yep, and also, of course, the Eurozone crisis should be high on the agenda. But what about China's slowdown, given what would happen in PMI, the first contraction in 9 months that took place over the weekend?
Yeah, well, of course, they are mindful of the slowdown for the failure to rekindle growth in Europe. They'll be concerned about the reports from the United States that growth isn't as high as it should be. And you're right, these latest reports about China will also cause some concerns. The APEC economies, by and large, have been fairly free of the impact of the global financial crisis, the United States accepted, because most of them have had significant trade relationships with China. So these concerns about China mothballing its steel production, China now more doubts about how much secured debt there is behind much of the property development and expansion in China, will be some cause for concern. But I think the feeling mostly will be that growth with China will slow down, but the growth in the region will still remain buoyant.
Okay, and now that Russia is a member of the WTO officially, at least, are we expecting some free trade agreements to be signed as well?
Yes, there is interest by Russia to now negotiate free trade agreements. They won't sign them at this meeting, but there's indications that they're going to announce that they're going to do free trade agreements with New Zealand and Vietnam. And that's new. I think it's quite welcome sign for all of us to see Russia starting to consolidate. It's been saying for a long time wants to open its markets, but now we're starting to see it lock into agreements which will guide the way in which it works in the future.
One more question for you, Mr. Oxley. What do you think of Hillary Clinton standing in for President Obama? What does that signal to you at this APEC summit?
Well, it's always a little worrying when a leader as important as President Obama does not turn up. On the other hand, it's understood that it's an election year. But the Obama involvement in APEC has been quite welcome and fresh in the last year, because he's launched this program for a Trans-Pacific Partnership. It doesn't involve all APEC members, but about 9 or 10 of them. And the idea here is that this might be a framework for the future, which might in fact result in an APEC-wide free trade agreement. Now, that's a very positive thing by the United States, but there's one worrying downside in this, and this is, I guess, a function of domestic US politics. The Americans have proposed in this agreement, and have also raised this issue in APEC, that some what we'd consider, I think, in the region's more peripheral issues like illegal logging and environmental trade controls be put on the table as well. And Senator Hillary Clinton certainly supported these at the Rio summit recently. So that won't be too welcome to the rest of APEC, because most of APEC, in fact, wants to concentrate on building growth. In that sense, I think Russia will refocus the direction of this meeting to the traditional growth issues.
Okay, Alan, thank you so much for your time. Alan Oxley, they're the former GATT ambassador from Australia.